I 28F, never thought I'd be a widow at my age, but here I am, sitting at my kitchen table at 7 a.m., trying to get my son Lucas, 7M, ready for school while fighting back tears. It's been 8 months since the accident at the construction site took Michael from us, but sometimes it feels like yesterday. The first few months after Michael's death were a blur of paperwork, tears, and sleepless nights. I honestly don't know how I would have made it through without Jennifer and David, both 58, my in-laws. They've been absolute angels, picking Lucas up from school every day so I can focus on my work as a project manager at a tech startup. I stop by their place afterward to get him, and every single time, they try to give me money. "Sweetie, we want to help," Jennifer insists, her kind eyes meeting mine as she tries to slip an envelope into my purse. "We know the insurance company paid well, but your family. Let us do this." She's right about the insurance. The company paid out $300,000 after Michael's death. Between that and my job, we're doing okay, financially. But it's not about the money with Jennifer and David. It's about the love they show us every day. If only my own parents were half as supportive. Mom and Dad have always made it clear that my older sister Rachel, 32F, was their golden child, and now they extend that same favoritism to her kids over Lucas. Last weekend was typical. Lucas was excited to see his grandparents, but within 20 minutes, Mom was complaining about his questions. "Why does the clock make that sound?" Lucas asked, pointing to their antique grandfather clock. "How does it work inside?" "Dakota, can't you control him?" Mom sighed, rolling her eyes. "He's always asking questions about everything. Rachel's kids never give us this much trouble." Dad nodded in agreement, reaching for his laptop. "Here, Lucas, why don't you play some games instead?" "Look, I downloaded some new ones." But Lucas didn't want games. He wanted to talk, to learn, to connect. Meanwhile, Rachel's 3 kids sat in the corner, completely absorbed in their phones, barely acknowledging anyone's presence. And my parents held this up as the ideal behavior. I've learned to bite my tongue. Growing up as the less favored child, I got used to these comparisons long ago. Now I just shake my head and stay silent when they praise Rachel's parenting while criticizing mine. At least they do help occasionally with Lucas, watching him when I have late meetings or picking him up if both Jennifer and David are busy. It was supposed to be just another Tuesday dinner at my parents' house. The warning signs were there from the moment I walked in. Mom had made my favorite lasagna, which she usually only does when she wants something. Dad was unusually chatty, asking about work, about Lucas, about everything really. They were building up to something, I just didn't know what. "So, Dakota," Mom said carefully, cutting her lasagna into perfect squares. "We've been meaning to ask you something. How much was Michael's life insurance payout?" The question hit me like a slap in the face. I nearly choked on my water, completely blindsided by such a direct inquiry about something so personal. Maybe it was the shock, or maybe I was just tired of keeping secrets from my parents, but I answered honestly. "About $300,000, I said quietly. The fork in Mom's hand clattered against her plate. Dad's head snapped up so fast I thought he might hurt himself. They stared at me like I'd just announced I'd won the lottery. "Well," Mom said, putting down her fork deliberately, "what are you planning to do with all that money?" I could feel the weight of their expectations pressing down on me. "I've invested it," I explained, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's for Lucas's future, his college education, maybe help him buy an apartment when he's older. Michael and I always talked about Dash." "But that's years away," Dad interrupted, waving his hand dismissively. "You should be thinking about the present, Dakota. About yourself and your family." The way he said family made it clear he wasn't talking about Lucas. "You could do so much with that money now," Mom chimed in, leaning forward eagerly. "You could help your family, people who need it today, not save it all for some distant future that might not even Dash." "I'm not discussing my money anymore," I cut her off, my voice sharper than I intended. The silence that followed was deafening. They both sat back, Dad's face clouding over with that familiar disappointment I'd seen so many times growing up. Mom pressed her lips together in that thin line that always meant trouble. The rest of the dinner passed in tense silence, broken only by the scraping of forks against plates. I thought that would be the end of it. Knowing my parents, I expected them to give me the silent treatment for at least a month. It's what they always did when I didn't live up to their expectations. But to my surprise, Mom called just a week later. "We're having a family dinner on Sunday," she announced, her voice warm as if nothing had happened. "Rachel and the kids will be there too. You have to come, sweetie." Something about her tone made me uneasy, but I agreed. When I arrived that Sunday, Rachel was already there with her 3 kids, all of them glued to their phones as usual. As we sat down to eat, she started talking about rising prices, bills piling up, and how hard it was to make ends meet these days. "Everything is just so expensive now," she sighed, passing the potatoes. Mom dabbed at her eyes with a napkin, talking about rising grocery prices and utility bills. Rachel cleared her throat and sat up straighter. "I've been thinking," she announced, looking around the table with that same self-righteous expression she'd worn since we were kids. "Dakota and I should help Mom and Dad financially. I'll send them $500 every month. I wish I could do more, but you know how it is, Jack's the only one working, and with 3 kids. She trailed off, letting that sink in before turning to me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "But you, Dakota, you should send them $1,000 monthly." "Excuse me?" I nearly choked on my water. "Well, it makes sense," Rachel pressed on. "You earn really well at your job, and you only have 1 child to support. Plus, with your situation, you have other income now." My blood boiled at her careful avoidance of mentioning Michael's death directly. I wanted to scream that I was a widow, that I didn't have a husband's income to rely on anymore, that the other income she was referring to was meant for my son's future. But Mom was already clapping her hands in delight, and Dad was beaming like it was Christmas morning. "Oh, girls," Mom exclaimed. "You don't know what this means to us." I sat there, torn between anger and disbelief, watching my family's expectant faces. The words of refusal died in my throat. I'd spent my whole life trying to earn their approval, and here they were, putting a price tag on it. "Fine," I heard myself say. "I'll do it." The first transfer hurt the most, $1,000 gone with a few clicks. I told myself it was worth it if it meant more family support with Lucas, but that fantasy quickly unraveled. "Mom, could you pick Lucas up from school today? Jennifer has a doctor's appointment, and I have a late meeting." "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry," Mom's voice crackled through the phone. "I've got such a headache today. You know how my migraines get." This became a pattern. Every time I needed help with Lucas, there was an excuse. Mom was too busy. She was tired. She had errands to run. Her back was acting up. Meanwhile, the $1,000 left my account like clockwork every month. One particularly frustrating Thursday, after Mom claimed she couldn't watch Lucas because she might be coming down with something, I called Jennifer in desperation. "Of course we'll pick him up," Jennifer said without hesitation. "David's already heading to the school. He loves their little chats on the drive home. Lucas has been telling him all about their science project." I hung up the phone and sat at my desk fighting back tears. $1,000 a month bought me nothing but excuses from my own mother, while my mother-in-law dropped everything to help without asking for a penny. December crept up on me that year. We'd always spent Christmas at my parents' house. It was tradition, the whole family gathered there, exchanging gifts, sharing meals, making memories. The call came exactly a week before Christmas. I was helping Lucas with his homework when my phone lit up with Mom's number. "Dakota, honey," she started, using that syrupy sweet tone that always preceded bad news, "about Christmas Eve, we've decided to do something different this year. We're having an adults-only party. No children allowed." The pencil I was holding snapped in my hand. "What?" "It's just that we want to do something more sophisticated this year," Mom continued as if she was discussing something as trivial as changing dinner plans. "You know, wine, adult conversation." "But it's Christmas," I protested, moving away so Lucas couldn't hear. "What am I supposed to do with Lucas?" "Oh, that's easy," she replied, her voice light and dismissive. You can leave him with Jennifer and David. They'd love to have him, I'm sure. You'll come by around 7? I need advice, Reddit. AITA for considering cutting off contact with my parents over this? The monthly payments, the constant favoritism, and now this Christmas party situation. I feel like I'm at my breaking point. Update 1, thank you all for your support and advice on my last post. I have an update about the Christmas party situation, and it's even worse than I imagined. After much internal debate, I decided to make an appearance at my parents' adults-only Christmas party. I left Lucas with Jennifer and David, who were more than happy to have him. They were already planning to bake Christmas cookies and watch holiday movies together. When I pulled up to my parents' house, I noticed more cars than usual in the driveway. I could hear children's laughter mixed with Christmas music spilling out into the cold December air. My stomach twisted, surely I was imagining things. I wasn't. Opening the front door, I froze in complete shock. The house was packed with relatives, and running through the living room with paper crowns on their heads were Rachel's 3 kids. Near the Christmas tree, I spotted my cousin Linda's children helping themselves to cookies. More kids appeared in my line of sight, my cousin Mark's twins, my cousin Susan's teenager, all of them freely enjoying the party. I stood in the doorway, my gift bag hanging limply from my hand as the reality sank in. This wasn't an adults-only party at all. It was a party where only my son wasn't welcome. My Aunt Marie was the first to spot me. "Dakota, sweetheart." She rushed over to hug me, then looked around expectantly. "Where's little Lucas? Don't tell me he's sick on Christmas Eve." Before I could answer, my cousin Peter chimed in. "Yeah. Where's our favorite little scientist? Jake's been wanting to show him his new chemistry set." More relatives gathered around, all asking the same question, where was Lucas? Why had I come alone? Each inquiry felt like a knife twisting in my gut. Through the crowd, I spotted my mother in the kitchen, arranging cookies on a Christmas-themed platter as if everything was perfectly normal. "Excuse me," I managed to say, pushing past my concerned relatives. My feet carried me to the kitchen on autopilot, anger building with each step. "Mom," I said, my voice low and controlled, "can we talk privately?" Something in my tone made her put down the platter. I led her into the hallway, away from prying ears. "You told me this was an adults-only party," I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. "You specifically told me not to bring Lucas. So why are Rachel's kids here? Why are all the cousins' children here?" Mom straightened her Christmas sweater, not meeting my eyes. "Well, that's different." "Different how?" "Those children," she said, gesturing vaguely toward the living room, "know how to behave at formal gatherings. They're well-mannered." I stared at her in disbelief. "Well-mannered?" "Lucas is one of the most polite children I know. His teachers praise his behavior constantly. Jennifer and David always say." "Oh, Jennifer and David," Mom interrupted, rolling her eyes. "They spoil him, encourage all those endless questions." As if on cue, a commotion erupted from the dining room. Rachel's youngest son Kevin had grabbed a handful of deviled eggs and was throwing them at his sister. The eggs sailed across the room, splattering against Madison's new Christmas dress as she shrieked. I turned back to my mother, raising an eyebrow. "Yes, I can clearly see their superior manners on display. That's just children being children. But when Lucas asks questions about how things work, that's unacceptable behavior? Don't be so dramatic, Dakota. He's fine with Jennifer and David." Something snapped inside me. Without another word, I walked into the center of the living room and cleared my throat loudly. The sound cut through the holiday music and chatter. Heads turned, conversations died mid-sentence, and suddenly all eyes were on me. "Several of you have asked why I came alone tonight," I began, my voice stronger than I expected. "Why Lucas isn't here celebrating Christmas with his family." Rachel started to move toward me, but I held up my hand. "Let me finish. I'm here alone because a week ago, Mom called and told me this was an adults-only party. I was specifically told not to bring Lucas." "What?" Aunt Marie's voice cut through the silence. But all the children are here, Uncle Steve added, looking confused. Mom stepped forward, her face flushed. Dakota, this isn't the time. Oh, I think this is exactly the time, I continued, my voice rising slightly. Because you see, there wasn't really a ban on children. There was a ban on one child, my son, who apparently isn't good enough for this family's Christmas celebration. The room erupted in murmurs. I saw shocked faces and disapproving looks directed at my parents. But I wasn't done. The months of manipulation and favoritism had built up, and it was all coming out now. While my son isn't good enough to attend Christmas, I'm apparently good enough to send my parents $1,000 every month. And Rachel here sends $500. Rachel's husband Jack's head snapped up. Wait, what? What $500? Our account barely covers the bills as it is. I'll post another update soon about what happened next. Things have escalated quickly, and I need some time to process everything. Update 2, thank you for all your support on my previous posts. A lot has happened since my revelation at the Christmas party, and I'm still trying to process everything. The aftermath was more explosive than I could have imagined. After I exposed the monthly payments, the room descended into chaos. Jack was staring at Rachel with a mixture of disbelief and rage I'd never seen before. You told me our account was empty because of the kids' after-school activities, his voice trembled with barely contained anger. You said we couldn't afford a new car because of their tutoring. But you've been sending your parents $500 every month? Rachel's carefully maintained composure cracked completely. Her face flushed red as she looked frantically between our parents and her husband. I never actually sent any money, she stammered. The silence that followed was deafening. Rachel continued, her voice getting smaller with each word. Mom and Dad asked me to say I was sending $500 so Dakota would agree to help them financially. They said if she thought I was contributing too, she'd feel obligated to help more. More? Jack's voice rose sharply. How much have they been taking from Dakota? $1,000 a month, I answered quietly. Jack's face went from red to purple. Let me get this straight, he turned to our parents. You've been extracting money from your widowed daughter, while Rachel and I have been struggling to make ends meet, and you made Rachel lie about contributing to manipulate Dakota into giving more? My parents stood frozen by the Christmas tree, their carefully crafted facade crumbling around them. Dad attempted to speak. Now, Jack, you have to understand. Understand what? Aunt Marie interrupted, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. That you scammed your own daughter out of thousands of dollars? That you've been using her like an ATM while treating her child like a second-class citizen? That's beyond low, even for you too. The room erupted in overlapping voices. Some relatives were expressing disgust, others demanding explanations. Rachel was desperately trying to explain herself to Jack, but each explanation seemed to make things worse. The vacation to Florida last month, Jack said suddenly, his eyes widening. You said that was a work bonus. Was that Dakota's money too? Rachel's silence was answer enough. Uncle Mike stood up first, his face grim. I can't stay in this house another minute, he announced, gathering his coat. Come on, kids. We're leaving. He turned to me and added in a softer voice, Dakota, Lucas is always welcome at our house. In fact, I'd love to show him my new telescope. He's interested in astronomy, right? One by one, other relatives followed suit. Aunt Marie and Uncle Steve were next, then Cousin Linda and her family. The exodus was punctuated by loud comments about manipulative behavior and family shame. As people left, many stopped to hug me and whisper words of support. Aunt Marie slipped me her number, saying, "Call me anytime, sweetie. We're all on your side. And tell Lucas he's invited to our New Year's party, we're doing a science experiment demonstration this year. The kids would love to have him there." Cousin Peter, who's a financial advisor, pulled me aside. I'd be happy to help you set up a proper college fund for Lucas, he offered. No charge, of course. Family helps family, the right way. Jack was still processing everything, his face a storm of emotions. Finally, he turned to Rachel. I'm taking the kids to my parents' house for Christmas, he said in a cold, controlled voice. I need time to think about our marriage. About all the lies. He gathered their children, who for once weren't glued to their phones, looking confused and scared at the family drama unfolding around them. My parents tried to do damage control, but their words fell on deaf ears. Mom started crying, but even that didn't have its usual effect of making everyone rush to comfort her. The manipulation tactics that had worked for so long had finally lost their power. As I drove back to Jennifer and David's house, where Lucas was happily decorating Christmas cookies, my phone started buzzing with notifications. Text messages and calls from relatives I hadn't spoken to in years, all offering support and expressing their disgust at my parents' behavior. Several cousins shared stories of similar treatment they'd experienced, though not to the same extent. Uncle Mike had already created a new family group chat, notably excluding my parents and Rachel, where people were arranging regular get-togethers and specifically requesting Lucas's presence. Let's show him what real family means, Aunt Marie wrote. I spent Christmas Eve watching Lucas excitedly show Jennifer and David his cookie decorating technique, while my phone continued to light up with messages of support. For the first time in my life, I felt like I had a real family, not the conditional, transactional relationship my parents had created, but genuine, loving connections. I have one final update to share about what happened in the days following the Christmas party. My parents tried to make amends, but their attempt only proved how little they've changed. I'll post that update soon, once I've had time to gather my thoughts. Everything has changed, and while it's overwhelming, I finally feel like I'm on the right path. The best part? Lucas is thriving with all the positive attention from relatives who actually want to know him, not change him. Update 3, this will be my final update about the Christmas party fallout and its aftermath. These past few weeks have been transformative, to say the least. A week after the Christmas party, my parents showed up at my doorstep with an expensive-looking wrapped package. Through the peephole, I could see Mom clutching her designer handbag, the one I now realized was probably bought with my contributions, while Dad held what appeared to be the latest gaming console. Dakota, we know you're home, Mom called out, her voice muffled through the door. Please, we just want to talk. After a moment's hesitation, I opened the door but stayed firmly in the doorway, blocking their entrance. They looked smaller somehow, less intimidating than they had a week ago. We brought this for Lucas, Dad said, holding out the package. Through the wrapping paper, I could see the logo of an expensive electronics store. He doesn't need it, I replied, making no move to take the gift. Please, Dakota, Mom stepped forward, we know we were wrong. The way we treated Lucas, the manipulation with the money, we're truly sorry. And we want you to know, Dad added quickly, that this isn't about the money you were sending us. We really do feel terrible about everything. I studied their faces, searching for sincerity. Are you sorry because you realize what you did was wrong, or are you sorry because the entire family knows what you did and won't speak to you anymore? They exchanged glances, and in that brief look, I had my answer. Meanwhile, Rachel's world was unraveling. Jack filed for divorce after discovering more financial deceptions. Apparently, the Florida trip wasn't the only thing she'd lied about. She'd been using their joint account to secretly support our parents' lifestyle for years, while telling Jack they were barely making ends meet. I trusted you with our family's future, Jack told her during mediation, and you chose to prioritize your parents' luxury wants over our children's needs. Rachel tried reaching out to me multiple times, claiming she was also a victim of our parents' manipulation. I blocked her number. Being manipulated doesn't excuse becoming a manipulator yourself. The contrast between the old and new family dynamics couldn't be more striking. Last weekend, Uncle Mike hosted a Young Scientist Saturday at his house. Lucas spent hours with his cousins, conducting supervised experiments and learning about chemistry. When he asked why the solutions changed colors, instead of being shushed, he got a detailed explanation about pH levels and indicators. Mom, he exclaimed on the drive home, did you know that red cabbage juice can tell if something is acid or base? Can we try it at home? Aunt Marie has become a regular part of our lives, often dropping by with books about science and nature for Lucas. These were collecting dust in my attic, she says, though the pristine condition of the books suggests otherwise. Better they go to someone who appreciates them. Jennifer and David continue to be our rocks, but now they're part of a larger support system. Cousin Peter helped me set up a proper investment strategy for Lucas's college fund, ensuring the insurance money is working as hard as possible for his future. The monthly payments I used to send to my parents now go directly into this fund. Sometimes I look at the growing balance and imagine Michael's proud smile. This is what he would have wanted, our son's future secured, surrounded by people who love and support him for exactly who he is. Last week, I received a formal letter from my parents' lawyer, claiming they were entitled to ongoing support due to familial obligation and threatening legal action. I forwarded it to cousin Linda's husband, who happens to be a family law attorney. His response was a single laughing emoji followed by a "let them try." The family group chat, now aptly named The Real Family, is constantly buzzing with plans and updates. This weekend, we're all gathering at Jennifer and David's house for a backyard astronomy night. Uncle Mike is bringing his telescope, and several cousins are preparing presentations about different constellations. Why does Uncle Mike's pool have that funny smell? Lucas asked during our last visit. Instead of being scolded for asking questions, he got an impromptu chemistry lesson from Uncle Mike about chlorine and water treatment. Lucas was fascinated, and now he's working on a science fair project about water purification. I've learned that sometimes the family you choose is better than the family you're born into. My parents and Rachel made their choices, prioritizing money and appearances over genuine relationships. They're now experiencing the natural consequences of those choices, isolation from the family they tried to manipulate. As for Lucas and me, we're surrounded by more love and support than ever. Who knew that by finally standing up to toxic family members, we'd discover what real family means? To everyone who supported me through this journey, thank you. You helped me find the strength to break free from manipulation and create a better life for my son. Sometimes the hardest choices lead to the best outcomes.